Welcome to Video 7, Evaluating Historical Argument and the Theme. The next few videos will cover the evaluation sheet in depth and help you through the comment writing process. You may want to open the evaluation sheet file to use as a reference. The rubric sheet helps you break down the project into manageable sections. The first row of the rubric sheet is for historical argument. This refers to the thesis or claim the student makes and how well it is supported. Judging this section requires 3 steps. First is locating the main argument. For younger students, the claim might be quite simple, such as the gold rush was good for Colorado. This is not a particularly nuanced argument, but it is one that the student can support with analysis and evidence. Note that it is not required for the students to label their thesis or argument in most of the categories, and so you might have to look for it. Next, look at how the rest of the project supports the student's argument. The project to support the thesis with evidence and analysis. Consider how much the thesis and overall argument takes into account the evidence and analysis of that evidence. Does it feel like the student developed a thesis before doing any research? Or did the student adapt their thesis and argument to what they found in the source material? Notice here that the rubric scales the columns using the same descriptors: consistently, mostly, somewhat, and minimal or limited. Keep these words in mind as you judge. The thesis, or historical claim, is only one part of evaluating the historical argument. However, it is a great place to start. Here we have 4 thesis statements that show different levels of historical argument. The first, novice level thesis is Abraham Lincoln was a great leader because he was born in 1809 to a poor family and broke barriers to become president. He was honest and hardworking. More leaders today should be like him. This is indeed a claim, but it shows little analysis and cannot really be supported by evidence. Additionally, the second part of the thesis statement, which is more leaders today should be like him, is impossible to actually support and is not really a historical argument. The second example thesis expands on the first by developing a stronger basis in historical thinking. The student connects their claims to the Emancipation Proclamation and draws a connection between the proclamation and the eventual victory in the Civil War. However, there are still several areas where the student needs to develop further. One important area is the if statement. Historical arguments that use an if statement are impossible to prove, as the student cannot definitively say that without the Emancipation Proclamation, the Union would have lost the Civil War. Furthermore, the second part of the thesis statement falls into the same trap as the novice statement did of generalizing history. It may be possible to provide evidence that the president's honesty and hard work ethic allowed him to inspire troops and gain allies, but that's not what the student has written. It also lacks in depth analysis. The third example is a thesis at the proficient level. It connects Lincoln to the Emancipation Proclamation and outlines 3 areas that the project will focus on. This thesis presents the student's argument in a straightforward way. It's clear that the student will analyze the way that the Emancipation Proclamation affected the war, and they list some of their pieces of evidence. It's also easy to see how they can support this argument. In general, this is a pretty good thesis. However, we'll look at an exemplary thesis for a stellar example. Here we see an exemplary level thesis. Take a minute and know what the differences are between this and the proficient level thesis. The exemplary level argument is overall more specific and nuanced. The student has included a bit more context. They have also specified that the proclamation only freed enslaved people in Confederate states, and they included a more nuanced argument about the broader scope of racial equality in the United States. Of course, the student will still have to back up all of their argument with evidence presented in the rest of their project. Even if a student has a great sounding thesis statement, they can still only give you minimal evidence to support it, resulting in a novice mark. In older evaluation sheets, the relation to the theme was measured separately from historical quality. However, it has been added to the section on historical quality in the version updated for 2021. Let's break down how the theme is described in the rubric and how you might consider the theme in your first reading of the project. The rubric is concerned with how clear and consistent the theme connection is throughout both the project and the argument. This means that an exemplary project should make this theme a central part of their argument. These are the three beginning steps for analyzing the theme connection. First is whether you can see any theme connection. Some students may use the annual theme as the starting point for their topic, especially when they are given a theme related topic list. You might be able to see how the student was inspired by a particular theme without them explicitly talking about the theme in their project. Next, does the project explicitly discuss the theme? Middle range rankings will have connections to this theme in their thesis statements, possibly without including the theme words. Alternatively, students in middle rankings may have a section of their project that connects their topic to the theme. An exemplary project should have their theme consistently woven throughout the argument and the body of the project. An exemplary project will also use the theme to further their historical argument. One easy way of thinking about these different descriptors of completely, mostly, somewhat, and minimal is through a pie analogy. When you are deciding to give marks to a student, try to avoid thinking about the columns as separate types of pie. Instead, picture each step as a continuum of the same pie. For example, a student who has a novice mark on the relation to theme category will have, quote, minimal clarity in their projects connection to the theme. These descriptors of consistently, mostly, somewhat, and minimal or limited are consistent throughout the rubric rows. Thank you for joining Maryland History Day. Next up is Video 8, Wide Research and Primary Sources.